Some supplements just absolutely work, and others are such a waste of our money and our time. Well, we're going to figure out why today on the Natural Upgrade. We're interviewing a naturopathic, holistic expert. And Dr. Middleton's going to actually peel back the layers of the onion, if you will, and show us the science of what is nutrient absorption as well as timing. He's going to help us understand the difference between detox and a cleanse. It's worth your time. And this program is sponsored by Nature's Pure Blend. Their supplements, pure and organic, are designed to unleash your best self and do it naturally. And today we have a very special guest. I'm very impressed with his knowledge and his capability, but I think you will also love his level of humility and how he's able to take what I consider pretty complex structures of the body and break them down into easy, bite-sized pieces that you and I can use and put into practice in an immediate fashion. So, as we always do here on the Natural Upgrade, we want this to be something that you can take and put to use immediately. We're about nutrition, and if you are a customer of Nature's Pure Blend, you already know about that nutrition and what it's already done for your body, how it makes you feel different, how it gives you more energy, and how it helps you every step of the way. So today, what we're going to do here is I'm going to introduce Dr. Middleton, and he is going to talk to us today about the difference between a detox and a cleanse. Now, if you're like me, when he and I were talking about what I guess you would say his niche or expert specialty that he could talk about that's so beneficial for people, I maybe like you thought detox or cleanse, one and the same, six half dozen another. And we're going to learn that I was wrong on that there are some specific differences between that. Now, first, before I jump in here and allow him to kind of give you a little more deep insight into who he is, I wanted to tell you a little bit about his background as a naturopathic health professional. So he's got his PhD from Quantum University in Vancouver, BC. He's board certified as a quantum energy biofeedback specialist. He has a lifestyle medicine specialty and interned under Dr. David Kurse at the Women's Wellness Center in Western New York. And he has practiced for 8 years at the Mind Body Care Center in Tampa under Dr. Ron Shemesh. He has also authored what I think is absolutely extraordinary compilation of his expertise, The 8 Pearls of Good Health. Now, that book was published on Amazon in 2021. So listen to his expertise. And if there are details that you say, I need to drill down to that, we're going to give you an opportunity to do that when we get to the end of the podcast. So, Dr. Middleton, welcome to the call. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to meet you.
The first question I always ask my guest is not what you do and not how you do what you do, but why do you do what you do and how you do it? Let's start there.
Excellent question and an excellent way to look at it, because we want to look at what's the driving force behind somebody achieving certain levels or certain information and knowledge and expertise, and understand their passion for it.
Right.
Because you can go and get all the book knowledge that you want, but if there's no passion to use it, then it kind of just goes to waste. And a long time ago, I used to be bullied when I was a kid. And once in that opportunity where 4 guys were always picking on me, I had a chance to fight back. And in that situation, I realized the pain I caused somebody, and something in me said, no, you need to help. Your job for the future is to help others to improve themselves, to better themselves, to not come down to this level of pettiness. And so it drove me towards learning more about helping individuals from a healthy standpoint. When I got out of high school, automatically I was a personal trainer. I trained at that point to become a bodybuilder and won the Eastern Canadian Bodybuilding Championships. Worked out with Lou Ferrigno and Arnold Schwarzenegger and guys like that back down in California. And I wound up getting my master's in kinesiology, exercise physiology, and nutrition. And the key there was the nutrition. We know that exercise is a key component, but 70% of what you want to do is related to what you put into the body. Right. It is, in a way, as we talked a little while ago, your analogy of the supercomputer is very similar to my analogy of how similar our bodies are to a car, an automobile that we know and we can relate to. And I know we only have so much time, so I don't want to drill down into it, but your body gives you signals the way your car gives you signals. You have a dashboard. That dashboard lights up or tells you that your oil pressure is getting high, and your oil pressure relates to the blood pressure within the body. As it's getting high, we see a signal that says, this is starting to rise. We need to take care of it. Only our approach is to utilize drugs. Let's get it under control. Let's get you under, instead of going, why is this happening? So I began to get very interested in what is the cause that makes our body send out these signals, these messages, because those messages are our way of saying something's wrong. Fix me.
Sure.
When it happens in your car, you go fix it. You only do one. You can change your car around, but your body you can't. And we generally, especially us guys, because I got a headache. You know, I'm still okay. My liver's hanging out, but I'm not dying yet, so I'm good. So we'll put it off. Whereas I applaud women who have a tendency to be more in tune with themselves, and they will go in and see a doctor about those issues. So these are the things that began to sort of spur me into learning more and more. And as I was working in the aspect of nutrition and exercise, I had an accident happen to me where I was showing my son how to do a back layout on the gymnastics rings. I didn't warm up, and I ripped the bicep off my ball in the forearm, and it rolled up into my shoulder and tore both rotator cuffs. Oh, yeah, a lot of fun, but at the same time, it wasn't painful, although I've seen the injury before, which was very painful to those individuals, but I had it reattached. Everything goes on. But the one thing I didn't do at that point was get the surgery done on my rotator cuffs, which had been messed up in the labrum. So for 7-8 years, I just let that go. But no matter what side I laid on, the ache in my shoulders was so much, it was like, okay. And,
I know.
Yeah. And again, Providence put me down in Texas, Waco, Texas with my wife. And she came across a program or machine that was called the Quantum Zero Consciousness Interface, or QXCI.
Okay.
And she told me, it sounds amazing. And I'm up to, yeah, right. So I went, okay, I'll keep an open mind. And I went to meet the guy who did the presentation, and he was showing me the software program, which was hooked up to what's called a Rife frequency generator. Okay. It was designed by Dr. Royal Rice.
Yep.
And it was basically commissioned way back in the 30s by the Queen of England to find a cure for cancer. And he understand that cancer cells vibrated at a specific frequency, and the human cells, our cells in our body, vibrated at a different frequency. So he created the vibrating frequency generator that would send a frequency in above the cancer cell vibration frequency and break it apart. Wow. Money being the issue, the people that had the power to either say, yes, that's something we want to put out there, or no, because I don't get a piece of it, kibosh the whole thing. And it sat on the shelf for a long time. Then another genius, Dr. Bill Nelson, saw that his son, who was autistic, was slapping himself. And you'll see that with autistic children. And why? And it was because the neurotransmitters were misfiring and causing a little shock in the body, and the child was trying to stop it. So he was trying him. Okay. So he began to understand some of the things that his child was exposed to had specific frequencies. And those frequencies set off the neurotransmitters in the body, making them misfire, causing this outcome that caused him to do this. And he began to realize that, as we may or may not know, everything in this world is energy. Protons and electrons bombard each other at specific frequencies and ways that we can understand and accept what we see. Sure. That relates to it. And those frequencies either focus or meld in with the human body, either in a positive way or negative way. So we can take things that we consume, things that we're exposed to, this mouse, and again, it has a specific frequency that is more neutral than anything destructive or positive. Sure. But if it was something that our body found as a negative, then that would throw off our frequency, and that would set us into what we would consider ease. As I've mentioned to you before, that the true meaning of the word disease is we've gone from a state of being to dis-ease.
Yes.
Simple and straightforward. This is it. So now we're in this state, and we either wind up finding out the cause or putting a Band-Aid on it with a medication. So these are the reasons why I was pushed towards finding out more, because as I was talking about that quantum zeroid consciousness interface, I did wind up getting it, because from a standpoint of nutrition, if it could help me be more specific to an individual and why they're having some of these issues from a nutritional standpoint, it would be very good. And I thought, okay, let me do that.
All right.
So my wife and I got a very, very little window of information on how to operate or run through the program. And then we went from Waco, Texas to Buffalo, New York, which is where we were from.
Right.
And we were tired, and I hooked myself up to it. My wife and I were messing with it and just kind of running through some of it. And I went, I'm exhausted. So I took everything off and I went to bed while she continued to play. Didn't know what she was doing, but she continued just to kind of search around. That was the first night in 8 years I slept with no pain, Steve. That pain in my shoulders dissipated completely. And I went, holy geez, wow, got to learn more about this, because there's something here I don't understand. And if it can do this naturally, better can it do for those people that I work with and help. So that was where I began my process, working as learning to understand the frequencies, how they affect the body, which ones have a more positive intent. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Bach flower essences,
No.
or Young Living oils, essential oils.
I know about essential oils. Yeah. Okay.
So those all have specific frequencies that generate into a positive calming effect. Because the biggest thing that we have to remember is what's called homeostasis. Homeostasis is when our body's in harmony and balance. That's where it heals itself. That's where it calms itself down, takes away the signal that has been saying, hey, something's wrong, and goes, I'm getting things under control because I'm here in that balance that I can do so. So team's intent, even these different things like gem frequencies and the living oils, they have frequencies that help to calm the body down. And that's what this machine does, is it begins to eliminate the different signals. Because think of it as we're talking about that dashboard. And if your car comes out a signal on the oil pressure and it's starting to rise, so it's starting to get a little out of control, but then all of a sudden your temperature gauge starts to go up. Then all of a sudden there's a check engine light on. Then all of a sudden the tire gauges are going. So all these different things are going on. And from the standpoint of our body, this here has to try to control all this. So now we're moving into that state of dis-ease to a point that it can't keep everything under control. And now we're starting to pile on top of each other. Sure. We can start peeling back the layers and calm everything down.
Right.
With a certain extent. As we talk about nutrition, if we're not getting all of the proper nutrition that we need, some of these signals go out there and these two send signals back and forth that, hey, we're starting to move out of sync, out of ease, if I could put it from that way. So the whole intention was to calm the body down.
Right.
With some of the deep breathing exercises, some of the things you've gone through, extreme processes to help the body to shock, but then calm down and start to repair. So once it's in the homeostasis, then it can do those things. So those were the reasons why I went into those levels of training and understanding and education, is because there was so much more there than just the tradition, the allopathic approach. And I wanted to go in a different route. So there you go.
That's the springboard. Yeah. And I understand that. So you had a natural passion that grew up in through the kinesiology. And I don't think a lot of people even comprehend from a nutritional standpoint that our bodies function like a nuclear engine. Am I correct in that? My very amateur. So we're able to take a structure and consume it, and through a chemical process, convert that food structure into energy.
Right.
And in that process, obviously going in, starting with everything that's laced from the saliva in the mouth, then going down the throat. Most people don't understand your digestion starts in your mouth, not when it gets to your stomach. So we're eating too fast because we're gulping it down, which too often I think I end up doing that because I don't have enough time in the day. So I think I'm going to throw some nutrition in my mouth. And you're saying because I'm not properly chewing enough, then by the time it gets to the stomach, it gets added with bile and whatever the other stomach acids are. I think hydrochloric acid, if I'm remembering right. But others to start breaking it down so that then when it gets opened and pushed into the small intestines for its multi-mile trip, along the way, you have all these little feelers that are trying to reach out there into the food source that's being broken down. And they're trying to suck the nutrients out of it to then push it through, I guess, the wall properly into the blood system. Yes.
Right.
Okay. All right. So I get at least an A- in at least remembering what I learned. Okay. So I love the passion, because then you got to a point where you had a personal injury, and that personal injury had a direct reversal that you were able to feel better again based on a frequency generator. Outstanding. Okay. So today, what we're focusing on right now is all of these things that we've discussed here. Nutrition, you say 70% of our body and how we look, how we feel, how we function is a result of what we're putting in here into our mouths. Okay. Then over years and decades of either poor knowledge or poor discipline, we continue to put things in here that are processed, laden with sugar, flour, and all of these other, I'll call them GMO type products that are significantly modified from their original way. Yes, they've made them change. And so we're eating this stuff. And I remember one of my mentors along the way, and I'm going to blank for a second, but he was a Harvard Medical School. And I remember him telling me one of the things one time, and he said, how do you think your body tells you when it's thirsty? And I'm like, well, I feel like I'm thirsty. He goes, not all the time. He said, there's not a really different signal to tell you when you need to hydrate versus when you need to eat. And so most people, when they feel a hunger pain, they automatically start putting, McDonald's or something packaged in their mouth. And really all your body was going is, hey, I could use some water here because I'm dehydrated. How's that? How do you found that as far as a thinking process?
There's a lot of different variables in why we eat consistently on that. And that hunger signal is, again, one of those things that can be misinterpreted between thirsty and hunger. But also at the same time, we have, feel good meals, things that just make you comfort foods that, especially from an emotional standpoint, people will go to. But water is such a critical piece of it. I mean, we know that our body is 70% water, but our brain is 80% water and our blood is 90% water.
Wow.
So when you look from that standpoint, you realize that just how important water is to us, but most people don't drink anywhere near enough water. And we've been given this guideline, if I can put it from that line, just have 8 glasses of water a day. My question to you is somebody who's 150 pounds, they need 8 glasses of water a day, but then there's somebody who's 380 pounds, they need only 8 glasses of water. There's 2 variables here that are way out balanced, but just have 8 glasses. That's good for everybody.
Yep.
And, in my book, as you were talking about, water is one of the key elements of how important it is for your health. And the baseline is bare minimum half your body weight in ounces. So if you're 200 pounds, you need 100 ounces, bare minimum.
Wow.
There. Now, on top of that, for every cup of coffee, Steve, another 8 ounces of water to make up for the dehydration or diuretic effect of the caffeine. For every half hour of exercise, another 8 ounces of water. If you're doing physical activity outside sweating, for every half hour, another 8 ounces. So we can see how easy it is to fall behind the 8 ball and getting enough water in. And then comes the aspect of clean, pure water.
Sure.
And I know this isn't something we talk too much on, but there's the other key is we're relating to detox or cleanse in that antro is that exposure to so many different chemicals. So water, they take a lake water or they'll take tap water from a city. They're running through a carbon filtration system or reverse osmosis system, and they basically bottle it, right? Sell it to you. So that bottling process is then put onto a pallet, wrapped up, sent to a warehouse, and it sits in a warehouse for 6-7 months before it even gets shipped out to the store. Now, in that process, that water has been sitting in a thin plastic bottle that is leaching PBAs and esters into the water, that now as you're drinking that supposedly clean, fresh, filtered water, you're drinking chemicals. Wow. So not only, as you were talking about the food that we eat, as we've talked before, there's a difference, and I'll utilize this as that statement, is way back from Hippocrates, and I think it was 450 BC. And he put together the aspect or the statement of, let food be thy medicine. Because he knew that in the food back then, anyway, there were nutrients that the body needed to heal itself, to control itself, to keep itself in homeostasis. Right. But in 2002, 2003, I added to that by saying, let food be thy medicine, or food-like be thy poison. The advent of all of this processed food, which now has chemicals you can't even say or pronounce the name. Totally. Additives, preservatives, everything else. This isn't food. This is food-like. Food runs, swims, flies, or is growing, and we can pick it or pull it out of the ground or pick it off the tree. That's food. That's real food. But even that, think about it. And that's funny, because I was going through this process in my mind the other day. Is I was at a lifestyle medicine seminar many years ago, and the presenter put up on the screen strawberry. He said, what is the ingredients in a strawberry? And we all went, duh, it's a strawberry. And then he goes, yeah, not necessarily. This particular strawberry has 16 different chemicals in it. This organically grown one is just strawberry. So there's a huge difference between what we think is clean, pure food. Okay, I've got a green pepper. It's just a green pepper, but no, it's not. It's got the herbicides and pesticides. It's just, we're now with all of this that we are consuming. So we talked about cleanse and detox. And yes, our bodies have been designed to be able to get rid of it through the phase 1, phase 2 conjugation process of detoxification through the liver and kidneys. However, way back when we were created on this planet, that was what we were created to detoxify, which at that point, the only chemicals that we had to deal with were the ones that we produced in what's known as the fight or flight mechanism. Because at that point, we're pumping out norepinephrine, epinephrine, cortisol, and adrenaline for the threat that's there. But when the threat's gone, arms down, leaves the body, no problem. But with stress in our lives at constant variables, and that stress puts us into that fight or flight mechanism. And now we are pumping out those chemicals day and night because we don't got it down. Hence comes that little statement, remember, loves, why do zebras not get cancer? Because after the lions are done and they get their zebra, we go back to eating. Sure. They shut it down. So unfortunately, we don't. And those chemicals on top of the ones that we eat, on top of the ones that we drink, on top of that we breathe, all build up. Wow. Or we were going to go into that a little bit more, but it just kind of went through that process.
No. It's great because, and I think I'm going to have to allude, because I think it's a better example, as you and I were discussing the other day, you came up with the analogy of, our bodies being similar to an automobile. And, I love it when someone gives me something that's so profound. And I think the definition of profound is that it impacts you at such a deep level, but with a concept that's so simple, it's inarguable. Is that actually a word? You can't argue against it. Let's just put it that way. And you just kind of alluded to it here, and I'm fine with you diving deeper into it, because I think, that our audience has already taken what they know, either intuitively or they have already witnessed those that are maybe parents that are older than them by several decades. And what they've noticed is as they are aging, you see a ramp up period of disease where illnesses come in at a You end up with comorbidities, which are multiple levels of problems that are malfunctioning in the body. And I love your dashboard concept. I actually had a vehicle one time when you were saying this, that something went really wrong and all of a sudden all the dashboards went off. And the cool thing about it, it didn't feel cool at the time, but it shut my engine off automatically. And I had to coast over, I lost power steering and I coasted over to the side of the shoulder to safety. But my whole system said, every light on the dash that could be on was on, but it went to a self-preservation mode of we're going to protect the engine because something just went really bad. And so we're going to shut down the energy source so that you can't continue to create more harm. And what you're talking about here with multiple types of assault that we are having into our body, our cars,
Right.
we are taking in fuel that's not gasoline because it has sugar and it has flour and it has sand. And if you and I were mentioning this the other day, it made such well, everybody knows better that you don't put sand in your gas tank. You don't put sugar in your gas tank. In fact, I know of people that someone didn't like them, and in order to hurt their machine, they poured sugar into the gas tank, and it was all over. I think that's a full engine replacement, or at least my point is, it certainly shuts down the fuel injection system. And yet we have that knowledge about a vehicle. And then, we're sitting there, as I admitted, I drink coffee probably a little too much, even though I'm better than I used to. I try to tap it down, but I'm taking a diuretic because I'm also getting the other benefit, which gives me a little more attention span or a little heightened level of focus. But I don't have the correct discipline that you're mentioning. I love what you were saying. That's, for every cup you have, you need to rehydrate by 8 ounces per cup. And then I do my workout every day, and I know I drink water, but I don't know if I'm really paying attention. I do have a good habit of first thing, boots on the deck, I walk into the kitchen while the coffee's brewing. But the first thing I do is I drink a pretty good, what I call a thermos of water first right out of the box. And I actually take a little bit of sea salt that's got some other organic stuff in there. That gives me the mineral and some natural organic compounds. It's kind of like electrolytes too. Yes. But anyway, my point is you are painting a total picture here that is alarming to me. And I'm sure it's alarming to those that are listening or viewing this. And the next question goes, well, if I'm taking in all of this bad stuff, whether it's coming from my processed comfort food or that greasy hamburger at the pub that I like to go to watch the college ball games on Saturday, along with the nachos, and everything's fried and blah, blah, blah. And then I justify, a piece of cheesecake that's just laden with sugar. And on top of that, I don't eat, Captain Crunch because I know better, but I eat granola. And then I go look at the granola and I still got 12 to 16 grams of sugar per serving. And the per serving size is something that's usually about the size of your hand. I'm a big guy. I weigh 235, 240, 6'2". So I got a decent appetite. I don't eat one serving of granola. I'll probably eat 2 or 3. So multiply that times how much sugar I just took in to my engine. So detox and cleanse.
Absolutely.
What do we need to do when we realize, oh my God, somebody has poisoned my car?
Right.
Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily someone else. I did it to me. I'm the one who put the sugar in there. I kind of knew better, right?
Yep.
But I did it anyway. It was a birthday cake. And I loaded up an extra couple scoops of ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
So here's where I'm going with this. To get this out, how do we take the fuel injection system, however you want to call it, the guts of our engine that have now been damaged, harmed, probably even scarred? When I was having the last podcast with Colonel Fair, an MD, and she talked about the damage to the endothelioma, which I guess is the surface of the cellular structure, if I'm right. And too much cortisol you're talking about from stress. not having that hormone in there, but not having it flushed. So it's never cleansed. You're never detoxed because your stress in our world is constant all the way up until the moment where you're still flipping your social media while you're sitting in your bed, looking at your feed and blue lighting your eyes and all this other stuff. And then finally you fall asleep out of exhaustion, but you have so damaged yourself all day long, every day, 200, 300 days of a year. And then we wonder why we have all of these chronic illnesses. So I'm going to hand the baton back to you. What is it that we have? Well, first of all, what in the heck? And, I'm a Texas boy, so we do things real simple here. And when I hear detox and I hear cleanse, I go, same thing. And you're saying, no, Steve. Okay. So educate the Texas boy here. What do I not understand, Doc? What is the first difference between the two? And then let's start parsing that down into how do we get back to homeostasis?
Okay. Very good. Before I start, I want to give you one clue.
Okay.
Your interpretation of what a serving size is of granola is off. Because, and it's very important to look at that. What is a serving size of a food part or food type? So your fist, think of your fist, your entire fist as 1 cup. Okay. That's about the size of a cup. Now, to a bigger person, their fist is going to be bigger, but that's fine because it relates to their size.
Sure.
Cup, Steve, is a serving size. Half a cup, not the whole cup. So when your one handful is 2 servings, if you're having several of those, you're having 4 to 6.
Wow.
So that's why I wanted to bring that up, is because interpretation, you're just giving your audience, oh yeah, here, have a handful. Well, understand, this is 1 serving, buddy. There's a 1/4 cup, half a cup, 3/4 cup, full cup. So you can legally get an idea of what a serving size when you go out to dinner, because we've gotten more is better. That is full. But when we look at it, am I getting 1 serving or 2 servings of that potato? Or am I getting, that steak is way over? Because for meat, half your palm, 1 inch thick. Okay. Is roughly 3 to 4 ounces, or the size of a deck of card, which is a little bigger, but basically 1 serving of protein. Okay. So, but, get that. So the serving size of that canola, buddy.
Thank you.
Detox and cleanse. A cleanse is more centralized. It is basically just to flush out the guts. So in our colons, in our bowels, and in our ascending colon, descending colon, we have stuff that gets bunged up and we have sludge. A cleanse, as you'll see in the advertisement marketing, lose a little weight, feel your stomach come down, feel a little better. Yeah, because you're cleansing out that part of you. So cleanse is just to clean that sludge out and get it out. Like if you have a fecal movement and you see it more of a ribbon stream or thin, that means that it's having to go through all the sludge to get out. So you can use, and many people don't want to look at what their fecal matter is, but again, that's one of the pieces in my book.
Sure.
Very important piece of it, because that's where we excrete all that waste product. And from that standpoint, people don't realize is that your bowel movement should be the length of your forearm. So each time that you have a bowel movement, it should be the length of your forearm. That's the length of your descending colon. People go, well, I get a little bit here, a little bit there, but what is it? So again, from a detoxing standpoint or cleansing standpoint, we want to make sure we get this stuff out.
Wow.
So be aware of what's going on. So when we talk about a cleanse, as I just said, it is more just that, a quick cleanse, just something to quickly flush out the system and, like a radiator flush in the car, just to kind of clean everything out, get that junk out of there. Or we take the car out for a high-speed run and get the carbon out of the system. There's different ways to cleanse. The detox is a much more effective piece of it and goes deeper because, as we were talking before, your toxins are stored in your body. So in order for your body to deal with all the stuff that we just talked about that's basically toxifying our systems, it has to pull that out of the bloodstream so it's not constantly in circulation, causing us to crash or to have even worse problems. So it stores it in the fat cells. So when we're doing a detox, the detox actually signals those cells to release the toxins into the bloodstream, then supports the liver and kidney through the phase 1 to phase 2 conjugation process, which one is adding a oxygen molecule to the reactionary site, which is the phase one, and then we add a water molecule into the reactionary site to get rid of it so we can flush it out. So this helps to downregulate all the toxins out of the bloodstream. And which of your organs is almost all fat, Steve?
Which of your organs is almost all fat? I don't know the answer.
Your brain.
Really?
Yep. That's what's protecting the myelin sheath of nerves and neural systems that's been misfiring, is that fat that protects it. Because we have like 3 pounds of brain in there. If that's constantly banging around here on those nerve endings, we'd be in trouble.
Sure.
Normally, our brain is mostly fat.
Okay.
And so if we're storing toxins into the brain, we get things like brain fog. So we don't as well. And I'm using this as an example too, because I remember I've had tech wizards, people who are in IT, who have to be sharp in the brain focus and everything that they're doing, that would come in and go, I've lost my focus. I've got brain fog. I just can't focus anymore. We do a detox and they're as sharp as a tack. Wow. Clean it out and that baby starts to run like a fine-tuned engine again. And that's, again, one of the things that I mentioned to you is that detox is like your house. You do a spring cleaning, spring detox, and a fall detox.
Okay.
As it builds up. Now, many people would turn around and go, yeah, well, I've lived all this time without it. Really? You don't think it's affecting you? Some of those symptoms that you may be having are related to that buildup? But sure, they put it as, that's normal. Once in a blue moon is normal. But on a consistent basis where it's happening daily or several times a day, that begins to move us out of ease to dis-ease.
Yes, of course.
Bring that out so the body can take a deep breath of fresh air. Not that we get fresh air, but to cleanse the system. So that's the difference between those two kind of,
just like you might take your car into the shop and have it tuned up. They put a diagnostic system on it and says, oh, hey, fuel injector system needs to be cleaned out. There's too much carbon on it. Because why? Overuse. How does the concept of, and I'm going to use some words here that are a little bit outside of my understanding. I've studied fasting. I've studied intermittent fasting, which obviously you can do that on kind of a daily basis, but I'm talking about a little longer term fasting. And then I've also understood that associated with that, you move into a position of ketosis, which changes the kind of the fuel the body's running on. And then you end up in a scavenging mode that there's 2 terms that are coming to my memory. One is called autophagy and the other one is synesis. So can you kind of steer me right here? How do those all line up? And obviously intermittent fasting, people kind of know that's kind of a trendy thing, 16 hours a day you don't eat, 8 hours a day you do. And some people talk about, compressing that eating window to 4 hours a day and nothing for 20 hours. We stop the snacking, which is of course a big no-no. But how does that fasting help with the cleanse or the detox or both?
Well, and then from that standpoint, again, when we go into the fasting, we again move from the normal state and phase of energy taking from our food. So think of it as if I put 2,000 calories in a day, I've got 2,000 calories worth of energy. But it move into ketosis and we start to produce ketones. We now start to trigger the use of the fat cells that are in the system. And those fat cells, as we just talked about, have the toxins. So as we're releasing those toxins, we're getting rid of or shrinking those fat cells and getting rid of, then they get back into the system. The key element there is that even though we're doing that fast and we're releasing, if we don't support the liver and kidney to actually, as I mentioned, the phase 1, phase 2 with the conjugation process to get rid of, it'll cycle back up in the system where we go right back to square one. Even though we look at that fasting as a process of detoxifying in a way, we're helping to downregulate, get it downriver, but then we're not supporting the process. And then we wind up having to upload them again. So be very careful what you do within that process.
And if I understand, when body goes into a diagnostic mode from a fast, it gets to ketosis where it's burning ketones, that it starts hunting the least valuable leftovers in reverse order. So the only way you get to starvation where you're emaciated, where you do have the risk of of your body attacking it, is way, way, way down the road, months and months. Yeah. But early on, it goes into this cleanup phase. And senescence, if I'm right, aren't those cells that have somehow become damaged and are just sitting around either being lazy or they're dead, and they're just part of the garbage in our system, and we have no way to get them out unless we detox? Am I remembering that that's the correct term for that process? Is it senescence?
Yes.
Okay.
And in a way, you're correct. In the initial stages, our body does go into starvation mode because it's going through that process of not understanding what's going on. And at that point, we may shift over to using some of our muscle as the energy source until ketones are produced. Now, when you're doing what you're talking about, which is, say, a 10-day fast with nothing but water and coffee, you're in starvation mode because you are not in ketosis.
Okay.
Because there has to be that fat input, that 70 to 80% of your calorie intake of fat in order to get the body to produce those ketones so it doesn't move to starvation mode.
Okay.
So that's why that diet is so high in fat, is to allow it to go through that process without triggering the starvation mode and start to basically cannibalize its own muscle tissue. Interesting. You'll have a little loss initially, but then you start to change over as the ketones are produced and they start triggering the use of the fat cells.
Okay. All right. So that is something that I'm sure a lot of people here probably, before they do that, especially if they have some level of condition, they probably need to check with their physician before, especially if they're on some type of medication, before they just automatically jump into some type of longer term fasting. So I want to put that disclaimer there. Pay attention to your medical professional, right? Aside from that, someone like me that doesn't have any conditions, not under the care of physicians, doesn't take any prescription. Walk us through how we can go into this detox phase outside of a cleanse. And obviously I have in my mind, the benefits are myriad of so many things. Okay.
Yep.
There are supplements. Obviously, Nature's Pure Blend has its own detox formula, and it's formulated so that it can help, like I said, the liver and the kidneys actually release the store up bad stuff that's there so that it can be whatever. Flushed. That's good. Thank you. Yeah, you've got to exit it. What are some other ways that we could do this on a more frequent basis to get us to push us back toward homeostasis?
Well, and again, Steve, it comes down to lifestyle. If your life is full of stress, you're not going to go into homeostasis because you're going to be into that fight or flight mechanism constantly, pumping out those chemicals on a regular basis. But, proper exercise, proper sleep, proper nutrition, that's the big thing. And as we talked about, it's very difficult to get really nutritious food anymore. But if you can get or afford the organics that are out there, and even some of those aren't exactly perfect in their creation, and using more of the vegetables than the starches and the proteins. Now, we need proteins. Now, there are two essential elements that we must consume. Essential being the key aspect. Do you know what they are, Steve?
The two essential elements. Are we talking about like fats and proteins, or are we
essential fatty acids and essential amino acids?
Oh, okay. All right.
So those are what those two facets. So those are the things that we need to put in exogenously because we got to produce them endogenously. So there's the key aspect of it. Okay, everything else is not essential. But again, from a nutrient standpoint, the vegetables and fruit are key because they have those vitamins and minerals that are key for us, our bodies to produce things endogenously that will assist in keeping us into homeostasis.
Let's, we'll have to come back and do another deep dive because you've taught me so much already. And I know our listeners and viewers will say the same thing. They've got so much out of this. So, Doctor, I appreciate you for doing this. Tell us again your book. Tell us again about your book.
It's the 8 Pearls to Good Health. And that's eat, think, move, poop, sleep, pray, drink, and breathe.
Obviously, I love it. And you can find that on Amazon. Doc, I appreciate your time. I know you've got a busy schedule. And I know we could talk here for hours because your knowledge is just endless. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You've educated me and so many people that I know that are going to be on this podcast, and we'll have you back again soon. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
No problem. Thank you, Steve.
Hey, it's Steve Moreland from The Natural Upgrade. I just wanted to extend a personal thank you for hanging out with us here on our podcast. So I wanted to offer you the opportunity to check out the rest of our podcast and just to learn a little more about who we are and what we do. So below this podcast that you're watching right now, there's going to be a link. Check us out. If you can't find the link, then come to naturespureblend.com and you'll see the podcast link there on the top menu. You can jump over there, look at all our podcasts. We'd love to have you come back again. You can schedule this so that you'll be updated every time we release a new podcast. Then you can watch it on whatever platform that you're comfortable with. Thanks again for hanging out with us. And I hope that this made a difference in your life. We're here to do one thing, and that is to help you unleash your best self and do it naturally. Take care.